So this is a bit weird, isn't it? We're no music, no intro, just us. I feel naked right now.
Well, part of this is because we screwed up last week.
Thank God this is an audio show.
Yeah. Should we talk about... So hello, everybody, first of all. You got Mr. Langridge, Mr. Garcia, myself here. Brian is not here, sadly. We thought we'd just switch the mic on and have a chat and talk about a few little bits and pieces so you've got some content to listen to. But this is not a normal show. This is just a unplugged, unvoltage, uninformed. So... maybe we should talk about what happened last week.
Yeah.
Why didn't we put a show out?
Why didn't we put a show out?
Do you want to explain, Langridge, or should I, or should Jeremy?
I'm not going to explain. It has nothing to do with me. I was already.
I was going to say, let's go with you.
All right, okay. So Jeremy and I and Alan and various other people were, many other people, in fact, were in Austin for CLS and OSCON. And we had a recording scheduled on the Tuesday, and basically Jeremy was going to come over to my hotel room. We were going to switch the mic on. We were going to connect to Ak and Brian and record a show. And sadly, that morning, I got a phone call from my wife, Erica, who basically said, Jack, our son, has got strep throat. So the first thing I did was type in strep throat into Wikipedia to find out what this thing is. No idea what it was. And it's deeply unpleasant from what I can tell. And she was flying out to Austin for a keynote to speak at the event, and I had to fly back early. So this was all going on while I was stuck in a meeting for about 2 hours as well, which delayed things. So thank you, Jeremy, for figuring everything out while I was surrounded by a bunch of people in a meeting.
Yeah.
You see, that's not what I heard at all. I heard that you all went to the bar and then Jeremy outdrank you so severely that you fainted like a little child, and that's why we couldn't do it.
But I don't drink. What are you talking about? This is completely untrue.
Yeah, no.
Don't look at me. Last time I went out for a drink with you lot, I left my hat in America.
Yeah, so it was. I tell you what, it was a real bummer. One of the things I've realised is that there's this concept called fear of missing out. I don't know if you guys have heard of this.
FOMA.
Yeah, FOMA.
You had the FOMA?
I had the FOMA deep and hard on the way back. It was like, OSCON is one of my favourite events, and I get to hang out with my buddies there, and the idea of basically leaving just before it starts was difficult. But then, when I got home and I was greeted with the miserable child, I realised it was the right thing to do. So, Jeremy, how was OSCON? Was it good?
I hate to exacerbate your FOMA, but as always, OSCON was a really good time.
God damn it!
Hallway Trek is one of the greatest things about OSCON, and there were some great after events, and you missed a good show as always.
Oh,
but it just wasn't the same without you.
I hope so. That was my hope, is that basically it's miserable for everybody else if I'm not there. One part of FOMA is basically selfishness, it seems.
You did, however, miss the speakeasy where you walk into a hostel and slide a bookshelf over and walk into what is a quite nice craft cocktail place. So I think everyone was quite amused when I introduced them to that. You would have gotten a kick out of that, I think.
That sounds incredible.
Nice. We should go. Next time you're in Birmingham, we should go to the Lost and Found, which does exactly the same thing. They got a swing-aside bookcase thing, and then
really,
yeah,
nice. A Birmingham speakeasy.
We've got half a dozen speakeasies. Actually, it's cool.
It was interesting. The last time I went to Birmingham to hang out with Ak, the one thing that struck me when I was on the train going from London to Birmingham, which I hadn't been over to Birmingham for a few years, was the hipster infestation in Birmingham is ridiculous. And it's a different kind. It's like a different kind of hipster. It's not a San Francisco hipster.
No, it's like the Brooklyn of England.
Yeah,
basically. It's a different type of shitty haircut. Yeah, Ak, have you been to Austin?
Yes, I was there for South by Southwest.
Nice.
Of course you were. I forgot.
About 10 years ago now, actually. Long time ago. So I don't know how much it changed. I remember the Iron Cactus.
The Iron Cactus, that sounds fascinating.
It's a bar. Is it still there?
Oh, it's a chain, Iron Cactus.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
oh, I don't know. I've only been in that one.
Jeremy drops the mic.
Oh, there's one in Dallas as well, I believe. I don't know. There's none in the Northeast, so it's not a giant chain or anything. But
right, yeah, no, I remember that we went in a whole bunch of places. I don't remember them, but yeah, it was all right. But that's the only time I've ever been to Austin.
What an incredible town! That was my first time.
That's a fun city.
Jeremy and Alana, they know it well. They've been a bunch of times, and we went to what was that? Rainy Street? Is that it?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh man, it's like a street full of houses that have been converted into bars, and I could live on that street.
I don't know. I don't know what it's doing in Texas. It's weird. Yeah. It's weird.
I believe an Austinite would tell you you're not really in Texas when you're in Austin, so that might have something to do with it.
No, but you see, this is not the case, right? I was there, admittedly, 10 years ago, right? So you're walking around thinking, okay, this place is like Cambridge or something. I don't understand what it's doing in Texas. And then someone drives past in a massive Cadillac with horns on the bonnet. And I thought, oh, actually Texan, or just all of a sudden, you know?
It's... You know, like how the Vatican City is in the middle of Rome, right?
Yeah.
It's like Austin is that, but not that, obviously, within the middle of Texas. He says, no, haven't been anywhere in Texas.
You've been to Dallas, haven't you? I've been to Dallas.
Actually, yeah, I went to Dallas. Yeah, we had a couple of UDSs there. That was it's as exciting as you imagine. RoboCop, though.
Dallas is much more like actual Texas, as I imagined it. Like, you're in a hotel and it's theoretically downtown, but you still have to get a cab to go anywhere.
Well, no, Austin was very cool. CLS went well, I think. It was a new venue. CLS was a little terrifying because so for those of you who don't know what it is, Community Leadership Summit that we do every year, and it's just before OSCON. But of course, this was a new venue. It was in Austin, not in Portland. And if it could go wrong, it did go wrong the couple of days running up to CLS. UPS lost packages. The venue told us stuff we didn't know. But it all seemed to go off without a hitch, which was good.
Yeah, I think it went well.
Yeah, I'm glad you made it out. It was fun.
Is CLS and OSCON staying in Austin now? Is that now a permanent move? Or are they kind of touring around the place?
They signed a 2-year agreement with the convention center, so it's definitely in Austin next year.
Yeah,
and then from there, there's nothing official either way.
Yeah, what do you think, Jerry? Do you think the move made sense? I mean, do you think it was a good move from Portland to Austin?
It definitely had a different feel. I think the one thing, talking to a few of the O'Reilly people, they had felt that being in Portland so long, you kind of always got the same people going. And yeah. I will say from a attendee perspective, you got a lot of new people, a lot of new blood, and I think that increased the energy a little bit just because OSCON is a really cool conference. So going into it for the first time, I think you get really amped up about it because there's a ton of smart people there, a ton of interesting people there, and it's just I think it gets you pumped up. So you definitely noticed it was a different crowd. I kind of like going to Portland once a year. That's typically the only time I make it to Portland, so I do miss it a little bit, but that's more of a selfish thing than how it impacts the show.
I wonder how much, because there must be quite a lot of crossover with Zozo, Andy Bio's thing, which is enormous and has a lot of that same kind of slightly free culture-y sort of crowd, and whether if they move somewhere else that they could avoid that kind of conflict. But then again, I suppose if you do that, you wouldn't move to the city with South by in it, would you?
I did think it was interesting. There are basically two cities in the country with the moniker X is weird, because Portland's thing is Portland's weird, and Austin actually has the same thing. Austin is weird. Odd that they went from one is weird city to the other is weird city. But
well, then on the other hand, I've only been to OSCON once, and the time I went was the year they moved it to San Jose.
That is by far the worst one.
And,
that was terrible.
And it was terrible, and I hated the whole thing. And afterwards, everyone was like, yeah, it's not normally like this. So you could see how they were kind of burned by the idea of moving and must have been a bit wary about it,
The one thing that I did like about Austin compared to Portland is... first of all, there's a lot more to do in the evenings, I feel. And also, it's much more accessible in the central part of the city. So, in Portland, you often have to go over the river to go to places like evening events and whatever.
It is
else.
definitely spread out less than Portland is, yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of dig that. And I think the result of that is that you end up hanging out with attendees more.
Right.
Whereas in Portland, unless it's in a an evening event, like a special evening event, people are scattered all over the place, and your phone starts buzzing at 5:30. Like, where is everybody? So,
and the other thing I'll say on the OSCON or on the O'Reilly side is kudos to them. I mean, they really made an effort to get not only new attendees because they were in a different city, but I heard of a lot of griping and grousing from people I know that their talks had got declined. But they really made an effort to, if you were a regular OSCON speaker, you got declined not out of your talk proposal not being good, but out of them wanting new speakers too. So there was new speakers. They did really good on the diversity side. I think they said they had 45% were females. Just a ton of across the board, a ton of good representation from the diversity perspective. I think they did like a really awesome job there. So
that's a good idea.
You could tell that was a focus.
The Raleigh team, they know how to put a conference on.
Remy Sharp's conference here, Full Frontal, it's a web conference. And he doesn't let people speak twice. So I spoke at the first one, which was like 6 years ago or something.
Does that ever time out or no?
No, he's like, no, every speaker will not have spoken at Full Frontal before. And he's put in a whole bunch of effort to make sure that there's a really good turnover. And he tried really hard and did a really good job with making sure that the speaker list was representative, which is cool.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting idea because I don't know. I mean, it might be different in the States because you've got more people. But here in the UK, there was certainly a point where, at least in the web world, you'd go to half a dozen conferences and they'd have 6 speakers in each, and 4 of them would have been at almost all the talks. You were seeing speakers being drawn from the same group of sort of 12 people.
At least in the open source community, I think 10 years ago or so, we definitely had that problem. I think it's gotten better.
Yeah, I mean, it's better here now than it was. I mean, I'm talking there when it got really bad. That was probably 10 years ago when I was on the talking circuit. But yeah, I mean, the idea that you should be picking people who haven't spoken before at this kind of conference, I think, is a good way of enforcing that it's not just an echo chamber, you know?
I tell you one thing, though. So 2 or 3 people who I know were doing Ignite talks at OSCON. And for those of you who are listening who don't know what an Ignite talk is, it's basically a 5-minute talk with 20 slides. And the slides change automatically. They're evenly distributed in that 5 minutes. So you basically get up there without a flicker and you talk for 5 minutes and the slides keep changing. And the idea for me, I have a certain amount of speaking experience under my belt. I feel like I can do a reasonable talk. The idea of an Ignite talk fills me with dread. That sounds awful. Like 5 minutes, fine. Putting together content for 5 minutes is good.
The auto advancing.
But the fact that it auto advances is just an awful notion. But I'd never actually seen an Ignite talk, so I made a conscious point to go and see some Ignite talks while we were in Austin. And I'm going to stick with my original hypothesis. There is no way I would ever do an Ignite talk. I watched at least 2 people just bomb on stage because
it's harder than it looks.
Oh my god!
I think it's harder than right. It's harder than a regular. Not that that's not a regular talk, but a traditional time allotment. Let's go with it. I think it's more difficult, especially with the auto advancing, because once you lose it a little bit, it has gone. The opportunity to rapidly go off the rails.
Yeah, Baconio, do talks like I do, which is you've got a rough idea what you're going to say in the order you're going to say it in, and then you just go on stage and wing it. Right, which you can't do if you get a new slide every 15 seconds, regardless of your opinion. You know the Ignite people didn't think it up, right? It's a thing called Pecha Kucha.
Did not know that.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the name came from, but there are Pecha Kucha meetings, talk, evening, events, whatever, all over the world. There are loads of them. There's one here in Birmingham. They're bound to be some in New York, probably in Buffalo, in San Francisco. But they're not tech specific. But this idea that you've got an X minute talk and the slides advance every 20 seconds, regardless. It was their thing. They've been doing it 20 years, I think, long time.
Yeah.
So I imagine Jono's Ignite would be 20 pictures of cats that auto advance and then him just giving a regular 5-minute talk.
I actually thought the same. I was thinking, if I was to do an Ignite talk, it would basically be like Mark Shuttleworth's Space Talk from years ago, where he just rambled and he just showed pictures on a slideshow of him in space. Like I just do that with cats.
You rock up with your USB stick and say, okay, here are my 20 slides, and every one of them is just the words Jono and Bacon with one bold and one not, and they're all the same slides.
The non-bold, the bold is a proven stylistic technique for those people who don't have any stylistic technique. It's a great thing.
They go, I'm terribly sorry, the slide of ours doesn't seem to be working. You say, no, it's working fine. I just gave you 20 copies of the same slide so I can talk about what I like.
It'd be great if it's the same picture and then in the bottom right-hand corner, slide 1 of 20, slide 2 of 20.
You just make it so it's like a really, really slow stop-motion cartoon. So something just makes its way slowly into the centre of the screen over the course of 20 slides.
Yeah. Oh my God! I tell you what, I talked to one person who got up there, and she was one of the people who didn't bomb, and it was her very first talk anywhere. And this room was busy. There was like probably 600 or 700 people in this room, and she was doing this stupid Ignite concept, and she got up there. She did a great job, and I said to her, I was like, if you can do that, you're golden. Your speaking career is solid. So,
the first public talk was a Petricucci talk.
First public talk anywhere was an Ignite talk at OSCON. Oh,
that is a bold move.
That's like going, I fancy joining the circus, and the first thing you do is fire eating. That's nuts. Why would you do this?
Yeah. So there we go.
That is brave. But yeah, so I appreciate you didn't see the event, Jono. Jeremy, the hallway track is always the interesting thing, but were there interesting, talks?
There were. I didn't get to go to as many talks as I would have liked just because I had scheduled kind of a bunch of meetings and I had an off-site meeting that took up a good chunk of one of the days. But the talks that I went to were definitely interesting, and there was a few that I had intended to hit that just I wasn't able to, but yeah. The talks at OSCON are usually, I think, because they have so many tracks, they strike a good balance between like a third very technical, a third more informational, and then a third somewhere in the middle. So it's regardless of where you are in the spectrum, I think you can find something interesting.
But that was kind of when I went. I only went the one time. But the problem I had was precisely you look at it and you go, well, okay, I've got the choice of 17 different things to go to. So, fear of missing out, I suppose. But I don't know whether they should have 2 tracks and just have it be 8 weeks long.
Interestingly, they actually shortened it because it used to be Wednesday, Thursday, and half a Friday, and they got rid of the half a Friday, so it was just Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah. So many people bail on the Thursdays, at OSCON. I always do.
Yeah.
Because if you've been out there like most of the week, the thing that's a bit awkward about OSCON, where I guess this only really applies to CLS attendees, is that CLS is on Saturday and Sunday, and then you've got Monday and Tuesday tutorial days, and there's basically not a lot going on. And then a bunch of people get into town on the Tuesday, and then the conference proper kicks off on the Wednesday.
Well, as one of the people that run CLS, you should probably look into addressing that issue then.
But
maybe
then
we'll do it on the Monday and Tuesday.
Well, I could say how many people go to the tutorials? Maybe it might piss the OSCON people off. If you say here's CLS, they go, but we want people to come to tutorials. But why not just run it on the Monday and Tuesday? Because no bugger goes to the tutorials anyway.
Or even kind of Sunday, Monday, or something. Where if you are going to the tutorials, you could hit at least the first day of CLS.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Huh?
And that way, people aren't in town for a whole entire week.
Right.
Yes, which I'm supportive of.
What do you mean you're supportive of? You bailed halfway through, you slacker.
During this unplugged session, is there anything else we want to do? Any other notes we wanted to hit?
There is one other interesting thing. It ought to be pointed out that our own Mr. Jono Bacon is now an immigrant with no job. So,
I'm not an immigrant with no job, okay?
You are.
Although I do fear Donald Trump.
Job, I see some new business cards in the pipeline. Jono Bacon, immigrant with no job.
They're building a wall to keep you out, Baconio, right? You terrible Wolverhampton person. You're just not part of the deal. You're not part of Trump's shiny new America.
It's like, I'm sure that some people from Wolverhampton are nice, but most of them are Mexicans and rapists. Yes, I've left GitHub. So there we go. News has been delivered. Yeah, but I mean, I kind of outlined this in my blog post, but the basic backstory here is that I joined to do a role, the director of community role, and companies change and adjust and re-strategize and all the rest of it, and my role went away. We looked at some other jobs. There was like a senior manager role in the product marketing team. The guy who runs the product marketing team is awesome. This guy called Jason Johnson. And we looked into that. There was another role in professional services. There was another role which was like talking to VCs and about what GitHub's doing. And I just kind of looked at these things and I thought, they look interesting, but I'm not sure it's really me. And one of the things that Mr. Langridge has for many years berated me about is, tell everybody, Mr. Langridge, your 2 rules for life.
Okay. Stuart's first rule is you don't have to do anything that you don't want to do. And Stuart's second rule is suffering is not noble.
Yeah, right? So I
can unpack them at length, but I'm not going to. The whole point is that they're aphorisms, right? So Jono's now going to tell you about how he's moving to Mercurial Hub.
Yeah, so I basically looked at those jobs, and it was cool that there was some other options on the table. I mean, when I was informed of the news about my role going away, GitHub stressed like, we want you to stay at the company. We love the work that you've been doing, but I don't want to. It wouldn't be fair to GitHub for me to go and do a job that I'm not just 100% into, and it wouldn't be fair to me either. So,
it would be quite sad for you. That yes.
Yeah, so I'm sad to go because there's some awesome people who work there, and I think the company does really cool stuff, and GitHub is such an important part of how we make software, and I've nothing but good relations with everybody there, so it's all good. But I'm going to be setting up my consultancy practice. Is the next step.
Very exciting.
Do tell us more.
Well, for years, I've been consulting on the side, like community management, developer workflow, some inner source type stuff. And I've always enjoyed that kind of work. I've always enjoyed helping companies with how they build communities. I'm an advisor for a couple of companies and organizations like Mycroft that we've talked about in the show, and the Open Networking Foundation and a few others. And, I think when my view is, without getting too philosophical, is that, when certain things happen in life, it's an opportunity to kind of like reevaluate what you really enjoy doing, what you want to do. And, without sounding egotistical, with what's happened at GitHub, I wasn't worried about going and getting another job, but went to Mexico for a week on holiday with my wife, and I just spent most of the week just thinking, like, what do I really enjoy doing? And Langridge has always been an eternal advocate for running your own thing. Garcia has always been an eternal advocate for running your own thing. Brian lives under a bridge, so probably not. But
Brian is the guy I know who is the most I don't have a job out of people who have a job.
Yeah, and I just thought, I'd love to kind of just do my own thing, and for me, like the challenge and the opportunity of kind of like building your own business and all that kind of stuff, I think is going to be really fun. So I'm really excited about it, and yeah. This is when we record this is day 2. And so far, things are going pretty well.
Very exciting. Have you registered one bold word, one not bold word.com?
Shut up. It's a proven stylistic technique.
You should have called it oneboldword.com. That's just a really good name, actually.
That is not a terrible name.
That's actually wow.
No.
As all three of us rush to register it.
Now you, Mr. Bacon, you now think, damn, I wish I'd actually called it that, don't you?
For now, it's going to be called, quite simply, Jono Bacon Consulting, because I actually thought about, like, what do I want to call this new business? And I thought, look, if I pick a new name, I'm going to have to go and build all the Google juice up. And I thought, I've already got, from running jonobacon.org for 15 years, I've already got a certain amount of Google juice.
This is precisely why Cryogenics Consulting Limited is called Cryogenics Consulting Limited.
Right. Yeah, just start simple. So, I mean, I think if if this grows beyond just me, my current plan is for it to just be me. But if it proves popular, I'll look to maybe build a, like more of a partnership type thing with some other people.
Really?
But
you want
cross
staff?
That bridge we'll get. Well,
the bacon empire grows.
If maybe, I don't know. I'm not setting out to do that, but look, if there's a ton of business out there, I enjoy managing people. That's the difference between you and I.
This is true. Whereas I'd rather drop my nuts into a bear trap than be a manager, unless someone absolutely makes me do it.
Yeah, those bear traps, they tickle. So if you're looking for high quality community management, developer workflow, and inner source services, reach out to me.
OneBoldWord.com. Once again, that's OneBoldWord.com. Which is unbelievably not registered.
Really?
Nope.
What's it called? What did you call it? OneBoldWord.com?
Yeah. But imagine your company's called One Bold Word. That's such a good name.
Oh, God damn. You're making me think it's a good name now. The thing is, it is a good name, but if I call it that, I'll never live it down.
Well, first of all, I believe that ship has already sailed. Secondly, there's nothing stopping you registering and then just making it quietly redirect johnobacon.org.
Well, I did register baconheavyindustries.com, and that's going to quietly redirect to johnobacon.org. It's not set up yet, but it will do. So.
Oh, man.
So actually, one of the things I need to figure out is how I want to transition over to from johnobacon.org to johnobacon.com, because I'm not really an org now. And
why?
It feels like better to do that. And
I deliberately didn't do that because of the Google juice point that you made earlier.
Why wouldn't you keep your blog at johnobacon.org and have the consultancy at johnobacon.com?
Oh, that's an interesting idea. I'd like to try and keep most of it together, but from what I understand, if you just set up a load of 301 redirects, you keep your juice.
Yeah, you do.
Well, yeah.
So, but can you can only set up so many redirects, right?
No,
you can set up as many as you want.
I can set up a redirect for every single page. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I read somewhere that you could only set. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. So
no. You should be fine with that. But I'd keep both. I mean, you probably want to.
I'm keeping both for sure.
You probably want to enforce a distinction between private John O'Bacon and public John O'Bacon, right? I mean,
that was my thinking with the keeping what you have there.
Think of it this way: it's not just the .com has all the business contact details. I can imagine you doing blog posts about your work and thinking this is a work thing, So you have the opportunity to have that kind of slightly Chinese wall separation thing going on.
Yeah. Well, what I'm currently thinking is I'll keep everything together on the site. There's my blog, and then there's a consultancy section which outlines what the services are, and people can get in touch. Because I think a lot of people, I'm going to be blogging about some of the stuff that my clients are working on. I'll be talking about some of the stuff that I'm doing. I'm not going to be posting shilly type, company stuff.
But that's what I did. I mean, cryogenics.org is just one site. The front page is kind of slightly aimed towards the fact that, hey, I'm in business. But
and
then
a giant picture of your face on it as well.
Giant picture of my face. Yes, there is. That is actually
every time I
giant.
see that picture, it's by far the closest I've ever been to your face. And I've slept in a bed with you.
I said to my design guy, are you sure about this massive picture? And he's like, you have to have the massive picture. I'm like, okay.
There's all kind of like secret design knowledge that makes people want your services because of a giant picture of your face.
It seems to be working. I think maybe you need a giant picture, my man.
Stay in school, kids.
That is an alarmingly large picture of your face.
I agree with you. See, Jono, you need a big picture of yourself, man. Forget all this, positioning yourself correctly for business rubbish. Just big picture of your face and you'll do well.
Well, we said we'd talk for 15 minutes and now we've been going on for nearly half an hour. So we should probably wrap it up.
Time to end this non-show.
Sorry, everybody, for the fact that we didn't have a show out last week, but we thought we'd just stick something out this week. I hope this was interesting. Let us know if you thought it was. The usual channels, and we'll be back hopefully next week with another show.
Maybe we'll do more bad Voltage Unplugged stuff if people like it.
If you like it, let us know. Bye, everyone.
Bye.